got a lot of great leaders on this call, many of whom have got their whole team. So I see that Nick Hurst has joined from TP Bennett. There's a number of people that have joined from TP Bennett in London, where all of the over 300 people that are in their team have done either top 34 or top 5 across the whole team and those things. If you're a manager or a leader, and obviously you've had coaches come in like myself, Victoria, Peter, David, coming into the organization and working with them around their strengths. But then the leaders are left with the strengths. What are some of the ways that you suggest that leaders and managers who aren't necessarily trained coaches, a lot of them have got to where they are because they're fantastic at their technical skills, and then all of a sudden they end up managing people, as we know, and so now you've got this tool around the very best version of people, and they've been engaged initially around it. What do you say to managers and leaders who've got this information and who want to interact with people around their strengths, but they're naturally nervous because they don't feel like they're experts around it?
No, this is a great question. I get it a lot. And I think one is you've got to be comfortable with your own strengths report before you can have any conversations with anybody. I mean, I think you've got to be a student of that report that you can do without any problems. That's interacting with it. That's spending some time with your own top 5 or all 34. We have tons of resources available for you to be able to do that, right? Listen to our podcasts, go through the materials, get coached on it yourself, right? You really kind of need to be a student of that report to start with. Does that need to mean you need to be an expert or an expert coach? No, just need to be familiar with your own themes, maybe get familiar with the whole set of them, get some ideas of what they are. Just study it a little bit. Just have some familiarity with it from your own perspective. It's just really hard to go into, like, if you haven't done your own, I mean, it's hard to take someone somewhere you haven't been. So it's probably just a good idea to kind of dig into that yourself. That's the hardest thing, Mick. That's honestly the hardest thing for leaders, because here's the pushback I always get. I'm too busy, right? I'm too busy for this. Well, if I was going to give you $1 million, you wouldn't be too busy to take it. So, like, cut out some time in your schedule. This is great personal and professional development just for yourself. So cut out some time for it, maybe loosen up the schedule a little bit, right? Get some time in there. So number one, get to know it yourself and get familiar with it. Again, you don't need to be an expert, just get familiar with it for yourself. We have these 5 coaching conversations that we talk about in the Gallup methodology for managers. And we also have this idea, like, I think this is my own personal thought, as we're coming out of COVID, everything's been disrupted. Our teams have been disrupted. The way we work has been disrupted. Some teams are hybrid. Some teams aren't. Some folks are coming back. Some aren't. We've hired a whole bunch of people. Maybe your organization didn't. And if you didn't have 40% turnover, you're pretty lucky in this, but most organizations did. High turnover. The teams almost need to be re-onboarded in some regard, right? This is a great opportunity, I think, for managers to re-onboard their teams. Now, does that mean you go through a whole re-onboarding? Well, first of all, if your organization doesn't have an onboarding program, it's something to think about right now. Like, what are we doing to onboard all these new employees? You had an opportunity to reset the expectations for a third or a half of your organization through onboarding. If you miss that, darn. Like, okay, so maybe it's time to re-onboard on this thing. And all that means is just taking those employees and giving them some development. And of course, Clifton Strengths is a great way to do it, right? Bring them on, run them through a program. And you can do this however it fits your culture the best. But Mick, I really like that in the context from the manager to the employee. In other words, in one of those coaching conversations, just pull out the report and start talking about it. Let's look through these top 5. All the answers are right there. You've got them in the report. Like, we've done the work for you. Just start having conversations. Tell me a little bit about this, and then let the let that person actually talk about themselves, right? You don't have to do anything or any prep for it. It's all done. Literally, have them read the report before they meet with you, interact with it when they get with you. So I think, listen, there's fancy, complicated things you can do with it. But I think a great way to get started is just to talk about the report.
Yeah, and asking great questions, obviously, around those pieces, rather than getting into statements about the individual's report. It's more about the questions that you're asking them.
Don't talk to them. Have one or two great questions. I mean, you could spend half an hour with one great question. React to this a little bit for me. That's a pretty great question that just gets them talking, right? My favorite one is, what do you see in this where you've had success in the past, right? Because nothing tells the truth more than past successes.
What did Socrates say? Learning is remembering. That's all it is.
Right on.
That piece. And I loved your other point. I love the quote from Rockefeller, who said, people who work hard all the time are too busy to be successful. So, so taking some time, taking a step back and thinking about that. And one of the things, and working with the great team at TP Bennett, one of the things that I've noticed about that new onboarding is, if you can just get out of the way, if you bring 80 people into the room, 30 of whom have never met before because they started when COVID was going, if you can step out of the way and let them interact, they've got all the answers anyway. And the energy that comes from sessions when you can get yourself out of the way and let your people connect, they walk away thinking it's a great day, and you haven't done too much at all, except get them together, connect them, and ask a couple of great questions, getting them to think about what's right with them and what the best version of them looks like. It's really, really, really powerful stuff. So,
Mick, we've got. Before you move on, let me just say one more thing on that. We have a very, very simple process that when I'm working with college students, we work them through. When you just think about practical conversations around strengths, and it's embedded in our training in this individual development plan, but you don't have to make it complicated. It just starts with a goal. What's the goal that you have? What do you want to achieve? And then you bring in some concepts from these themes. What are some words in the insight report that describe you in this? And then how do we set goals, or how do we set action plans based on the goal that we have? And then, goals, they've got to be measurable and achievable, and got to have some kind of time limit to them. And then write out some action plan. Like, I can do that. I don't need a PowerPoint deck. I don't need to, I don't need a lot of a training. I mean, a manager could help the teams that they're working with. You can do those at team levels. Doesn't even require a form. Like, you can just do it. So I think, Mick, sometimes we get in our own way of thinking we have to have some kind of complex process to do it. And for me, simpler is better. I lead sessions on those all the time. We never even turn on the projector. We just start talking about them.
Yeah, and most importantly, getting them to talk to one another about it as well. Yeah,
correct. Yeah, especially in team settings, right? Getting that interaction between the two. Now, this is my favorite phrase. Now turn to your neighbor. Now turn to your neighbor and tell them, right? Now switch. That doesn't, from a management, that's not hard. That doesn't take, you just do it.
And that great Gallup question as well, where you can just get into it in that space around, tell me about the best day you've had at work this year. What made it a great day? What did you achieve? In this report, what were you actually using on that day that helped generate that great day? And then, of course, how can I give you the support you need to have more of those days? They're great questions, So thinking about that.
And you're getting to it when you stop saying, oh, that was your arranger, or that was your maximizer. And they start saying, oh, that was my arranger, or that was my maximizer, right?
And the lights come on. And the lights come on. And they get excited about their strengths.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good listen for. In the conversations, we have these in our selection instrument. We have these things we call listen fors, and you're just listening for it. In a conversation with someone, start listening for them owning it. Oh, that's my. As soon as they say that, you're like, okay, we're in. Now we can do some work.
but and also the one that I love around that, Jim, is to see their face. And so tell me about that face, because I could turn off the volume and just see the face when that strength, see that face there, just do more of that. Whatever created that face, that look on your face, if you do a bit more of that, I think we'll be in a really great space. Yeah. Because sometimes with strengths, it's not just what you're hearing, it is also what you see, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, no, it is. This is where, like, I'm actually very, the pandemic changed some things for me because I had been all video before the pandemic and nobody else would do it. Like they'd be like, oh, I don't want to turn my camera on, turn the freaking camera on, right? Well, the pandemic changed everything. Now we all have cameras. I mean, I'm seeing, I know they're not on now, but for many of you, I'm seeing you, right? And it's so much better for the engagement for me to see your face as I'm saying things and watching you respond to them. Same thing is true now when we're doing, when we're doing Zoom meetings or whatever. You will see somebody. Listen, I go back and watch the Call the Coach videos that I would do. I can see when I'm getting it in the video because I light up, right? My face changes. My cadence and my tone changes. My energy is brought, right? And so you could probably even see in this call from the beginning where I was maybe a little slumped over and tired to pretty engaged and fired up. You want to watch, Mick, you're right. You want to watch for those verbal or those visual cues.
Yeah, fantastic. Because I see Sandy Halpin down in Sydney, that face lighting up, and Sharon up in the UK. But I'm assuming she's got from South Africa to the UK now. That smile on the face suggests she has. So